Good morning. As you can tell, here's a new video. Now, the video is going to cover a couple different things. It's going to cover mediation, moderation, and how to operationalize or define a variable. Why? Because this is starting to come up in our current discussion during Module 2 or Week 2, and this is awesome. Okay, we've had both topics appear. We've had people talk about mediators and moderators, and people starting to think about, hey, how am I going to express my variable in a way so I can actually use it for my study? And other people can use it too. We're going to cover both. Here we go. Mediation and moderation are usually or often confused. They're not the same thing. So we're going to cover them here in outline. Okay. I want you to think of these as two separate things using these cool little pictures. Okay. And we're going to create little stories about these pictures. Why? Because stories are what people remember. Welcome to people. Now, mediation is the top thing up here. Okay. We're going to start in the middle. Mediation helps address how or why one variable influences another variable. Okay? For example, let's talk about here. This diagram could easily be understood if you think about a Halloween party with kids, parents, and candy. The kids could be A. The candy can be B. The parents are going to be the mediator between the kids and the candy. Now, this diagram tells you a very definitive story. The kids are always going to get to the candy. Okay, welcome to kids. Now, the kids will get to the candy. However, the parents can kind of step in a little bit and say, okay, you can have some, but not a whole bunch. Okay, they mediate or control to a certain extent, or partially control how much candy these kids are going to get so we can keep an eye on how hyper they're going to be later on. So if you like these sort of stories, if this is something that you want to dig into for your research, how well one variable controls the relationship between two other variables, then you're going to want to do mediation. The write-up for these are always the same. They're very, very boring write-ups. The mediating variable does not mediate the relationship between A and B. Okay? So for years, what you're going to want to write is this. Like that. That is your template. That's it. For example, parents do not mediate the relationship between kids and candy at a Halloween party. That's the null. The alt would be parents mediate the relationship between kids and candy at a Halloween party. That's the alt. And that's how you write up a mediation. And if you ever get confused on what mediation means, just pop out this little diagram. Remember, hey, kids are A, candy is B, parents are ME. The parents control how much candy the kids get, but the kids are always going to get some candy. That's what mediation's about. Now, moderation. Moderation is different. Moderation is like this, is where the parent is a gatekeeper between the kid and the candy. The kid walks up to the parent. Remember, the kid is A. Kid talks to the parent, says, I want candy. Parent says, no, no candy for you. In this case, they are the gatekeeper between the kid and the candy. Sometimes parents will say, sure, you can have some, so the kid gets to the candy. In this case, the parent is a very, very, very strict gatekeeper of whether the kid gets the candy or not. And in statistics, that's called moderation. Does that make sense? So depending on how strict the parent is, quote unquote, not so strict here, super strict here, you have to sit down and say, okay, what kind of person is the parent? Are they a mediator? Do they allow the kid to get candy no matter what, but control it? Or do they have the option of saying yes and no? And if so, that's a moderator or a moderating variable. And what's cool is it's exactly the same technique. You just write moderate. Moderate. Oops, plural, of course. And there you go. Same template, just a different word. So that's the story of mediation and moderation and how to write up the hypotheses if you want to get into this sort of thing. Why am I doing this? Because we had two people in discussion start talking about this. So they need to see how this is done. And the other thing is that so do all of you, because this is one of these things that you just need to know before you hop into a research project. Now, how do you know whether something should be mediated or moderating in the first place? Okay, two easy ways. Okay, your understanding of the problem, your worldview of the problem that you're digging into, the worldview of you, i.e., how you see the problem from your perspective, often will hint at one of these two things. It will often hint at a variable being a mediator or a moderator. You can just tell by looking at it. I know it sounds stupid, but it's true. The other thing is you can go out in literature and see what other people have done. A lot of people probably tested these already. Go see what they figured out, see what the lit tells you. And between the two, you'll know which model to choose. That's it. That's the trick to mediation and moderation. Now, the statistics is really messy, don't get me wrong, but at least choosing the right model is not hard. How does that sound? Let's keep going. Now, the next thing is people are asking me, Steve, I want to write up my variable in a way that works, defining a variable is called operationalization, as you can see right here. Basically, it's describing a variable such that you use it consistently in your study. And anyone else can use your variable and use it just like you did. How's that sound? So this is how we do it. What's really great about this, it's also a template. Okay, for example, here's the template. Here it is. Variable A measures. What does variable A measure? Stated here. The measurement is defined as explicitly define how this thing is measured, such that any dum-dum like your professor here can actually do it. Then interpret the variable in context of the study. These three parts, the name of the variable and what it measures, that's part one. Part two is actually how it's measured. And part three, the meaning of the measurement in context of the study, are the three movements or three components of an operationalized variable. This is how you define a variable in research. And what's really great is once you have it defined, you know exactly how to do it. You know exactly how to measure it. You know exactly what it means. And all that uncertainty and weird feeling goes by the wayside. And suddenly life is just easier. The other thing is that other people can pick up your paper and critique it. They can say, oh yeah, so-and-so measured it this way. This made total sense. We're good with it. Or they could say the opposite. They can say, we don't understand anything about this measurement. Something is wrong. Okay, that happens too. Now let's go see an example of this. Okay, I'm going to try to color code this to do my best. We'll see how this goes. Okay. Usually this should work. We'll find out. Okay, we're going to show the ribbon, and there we go. Okay, we're going to make this first part here, the first movement, yellow, because it's obnoxious. And what you can see is that this is the first part right here. We're going to talk about something called attentiveness, and it's a variable measuring how alert a student appears during lectures. And of course, I need to write in English. There you go. Attentiveness is a variable measuring how alert a student appears during lectures. That's the yellow part. Not so bad. Now we're going to choose another color because we're smart. We're going to explain how this measurement is defined such that anyone could do it. Now we're going to highlight this right here. Okay. The measurement is defined using Zoom's attentiveness plugin and may range from 0, completely inattentive, to 10, completely attentive. So now they know when we were watching these students, we turned on Zoom's attentiveness plugin, also known as ZAP. There is no such plugin. I just made it up. That sits down and measures how attentive people are. And it pops out a number for everybody. So now we know how it's measured, and anyone else in the world can measure it just like you did. Awesome. Now let's do the last part. I'll choose a different color that's not purple. Let's go green. Okay. We're going to sit down and try to understand what this means in context of the study. This variable is interpreted as a measure of how well a student engages in Zoom-based lectures, course discussions, and interactions with peers. Done. When you read this, we all know what your variable is, how you defined it, and what it means. And there you go. That is how you operationalize or define a variable to be used in a hypothesis test. The next cool thing about this is now you have everything defined. You can easily see where the numbers are going to come from for your statistical analysis. It comes out of the purple part. Now there's no doubt that you are measuring something correctly. And there you go. That's what operationalization is all about. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions, ask, and I'll see you later.